Brexit betrayal. Ministers pushing for UK to remain tied to EU regulation. 3 senior government figures have said they hope the UK will continue to be regulated by the body, even as it moves from London's Canary Wharf to Amersterdam for its post-Brexit home. Business Secretary Greg Clark is also backing demands from the UK's chemical sectors to stay within the EU's Chemicals Agency, and Transport Secretary Chris Grayling last month told the aviation industry that Britain would continue to be regulated by the EU after Brexit. David Pryor, who was Life Sciences Minister until October, said it would be fantastic if the UK stayed in the EMA and warned of a negative impact on inward investment if it did not. Speaking to the FT, he said, "It would be a very good idea, because having one regulatory system for drug approvals is very important for UK patients, otherwise we will be behind everyone else and not have as good access to new drugs as other people in Europe. Pharmaceutical companies tend to go to the US, then the EU, it's very important we are not left behind. If you're a drug company, you tend to look for approval from the FDA, then the EMA, then everyone else. The proposals would put parts of the UK economy under the indirect jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, ECJ. This goes against Theresa May's red lines laid out in her October 2016 Conservative conference speech. But, a government official said the ECJ red lines had been blurred since Mrs May's pro-Brexit former co-chief of staff Nick Timothy left Downing Street last June. The official said, "It's not quite so rigid now." Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt and Mr Clark in an open letter last July inferred their support for the UK having an ongoing relationship with the EMA. Their position has hardened in recent months as the pharmaceutical sector stepped up its lobbying on the issue. The Department of Health declined to comment and referred back to the letter. Pharmaceutical industry leaders warned of the consequences for patients in both the UK and EU if some sort of regulator harmonization is not achieved. The UK supplies around 45 million packs of medicines to other European countries each month, and 37 million come from Europe to the UK. Head of the Bioindustry Association Steve Bates told the Health Select Committee last month that the issue of regulation of medicines need to be front and center in the second phase of talks. But, EU negotiator Michel Barnier warned the UK could not cherry-pick aspects of the single market. Tory chair of the Commons Health Committee, Sarah Wollaston, said she hoped that common sense would prevail. She said, "There is a very strong case for allowing flexibility for sector deals, especially when it's in the best interests of patients both here and in Europe. The government will have to decide this year where different parts of the economy should be assigned as negotiations begin on a future trade deal with the EU." Boris Johnson and Michael Gove want as much of the economy put into a category that would see the UK free to set its own rules, even if they are similar to the EU. But, ministers accept other sectors such as aviation, medicines and chemicals would be disrupted if the UK breaks with the EU. The result may be accepting a role for the ECJ in settling disputes and payments to Brussels for the right to participate.